Okay, how's it going, everybody? I hope you're all doing well. Okay, so in this episode, I thought I'd try to say something about, well, let's call it something like love in our contemporary age. Now, in an earlier episode on the Greek poetess Sappho, I talked a bit about Cupid, the ancient god of erotic love. And I said there that Cupid is actually not best thought of as that little cute, impotent boy on our Valentine's Day cards. No, it turns out that when you look into it, Cupid rather is a primordial force of nature that incites in us a mad passion for another person, a passion that disrupts our very capacity to reason. In other words, in the ancient world, it wasn't understood to be up to us whether or not we fell in love. No, it just happens against our will. Okay, well, today love has become something quite different, hasn't it? We might wonder where the awesome force and danger of love has gone. Where is its element of risk and its arbitrariness? And what about our vulnerability with respect to it, or its life-changing power over us? No, today it seems we really don't think of love as something that we're struck by. Rather, you might argue that instead we do everything we can to protect ourselves against the force of love. I mean, we predict it, we engineer it, we buy it, we control it. And what's left of it after this then? Well, a de-eroticized world. My oh my, what would the ancient writers on love make of what passes for Eros today? Okay, but that was way too quick. So let me explain what I mean here. Okay, so maybe one good place to start is with the Roman poet Ovid. So in his great work, Metamorphoses, he recounts a story about a young sculptor called Pygmalion. Now, Pygmalion was someone who saw all women as in one way or another imperfect, detesting the faults which nature had given to them. So, as a result of this, he resolved to never get married. Instead, what he decided to do was to carve out of ivory a statue of a woman so beautiful, such that nothing could be added to it to make it any more perfect. Now, unsurprisingly, he soon started to fall deeply in love with his creation. He began to caress her hands and kiss her lips, and even to put her to bed at night, like little girls do their dolls. But of course, she was unresponsive, and so Pygmalion became deeply unhappy. Unable to keep pretending, he finally gave up on his creation. Okay, but later, at a celebration of the goddess of love, Venus, Pygmalion gathered up the courage to ask the deity to help him find a woman like his statue. And so Venus took pity on the despondent lover. Now, when Pygmalion came home that night, he noticed that his statue, standing there on the pedestal, appeared much more lifelike than usual. So he kissed her lips, and he felt them grow soft and warm beneath his. He felt her blood pulsing. She was alive. Now Pygmalion knew that this was Venus's doing, and he was, of course, eternally grateful to her. Pygmalion later married his creation, and he named her Galatea. Okay, so why am I talking about this? Well, I think that there are a couple of important points to take note of here. So first of all, notice that Pygmalion refuses to accept women as they naturally are, with all of their, as he sees them, imperfections and idiosyncrasies. His image of what a beautiful woman is supposed to look like is not one that can ever derive from what is natural. And this is why, hating all the deficiencies of biological nature, he forms his creation out of ivory. In other words, for Pygmalion, a perfectly beautiful woman can only be an artificial one, and one that is, importantly, carefully tailored beforehand to suit his expectations. Okay, now, secondly, and relatedly, notice that Pygmalion can only love simulacrum of a person, not the real thing. Galatea is a virtual being. She's an abstraction, or something like a real-life doll. She exists literally up on a pedestal in Pygmalion's home, a distance of height, you could say, completely antithetical to any genuine notion of reciprocity and love. And finally, because Galatea is Pygmalion's virtual creation and not an independent, self-creating being, there is nothing to discover in her that Pygmalion doesn't already know. And we got to assume that this is just the way that he wants it. Predictability is, after all, a form of self-protection. Okay, well, so in our conception of love today, are we not increasingly Pygmalion in our tendency towards things like predictability and security and artificiality and virtuality? I mean, let's take predictability and security first. So consider this. Just as we shop online for, say, the highest quality food or item of clothing, many of us more and more shop online in what is now the largest love mall for the perfect partner. In the same manner as we select beforehand for every detail of our consumer goods, we now, with a click, select out of hundreds of options for a person and for a relationship tailored to meet our needs and expectations, much like Pygmalion did. And we do it all without getting up from the couch. In this way, you might say that online dating, and with it, love, has essentially become a product of the consumer model. Now, obviously, getting a clear description of the sorts of qualities that a jacket has before you order it makes some sense, as it's meant to be used by us for a very specific and limited purpose. But to treat the process of finding love this way, to know what one is getting and to establish all the terms and conditions and parameters beforehand, is to not only presuppose naively that we can enter into a relationship with a clear-sighted and absolutely complete understanding of our own needs, but more importantly, this sort of consumer calculation removes the element of risk and receptivity and openness crucial to a genuine encounter with another person. It's ultimately to strip love of its mystery or its indeterminate nature and of its power and its danger. All in all, it's hard not to see online dating as being all about efficiency, about eliminating unpredictability, about security, and about self-protection. Again, all Pygmalion concerns. Okay, well, then there's the virtuality and the artificiality of it all. You know, the swiping through of immaterial profiles or disembodied identities. Here in this virtual landscape, selfies and self-branding and self-advertising rules. Narcissism and autoeroticism masks itself as love for others. Everyone has their carefully crafted image and highly selective descriptions. Descriptions rife with cliches and the popular list of stock adjectives, or more aptly, assets. So the language is really one of automated or scientific compatibility, where algorithms and exchange values and complementary interests have eclipsed any expression of love as something that's arising from natural inclinations and mad erotic desire. In other words, as experiences born of being a victim of Cupid in that very ancient sense. Okay, well, so let me mention a couple of more ancient myths. One having to do with Zeus, the god of lightning and thunder, and the other having to do with an ancient rogue called Procrustes. Okay, so according to a very popular myth, Zeus, in one of his many disguises as a mortal, had a love affair with a human being, Semele. Now, it turns out that Zeus's jealous wife, Hera, found out about this and decided to punish the poor woman. So, disguising herself as an old lady, she advised Semele to ask Zeus if he would let Semele see him as he really was, in his true form. So, of course, Semele listened to the old lady, and the next time that they were together, Zeus revealed himself to Semele. Now, it turned out that since, of course, no mortal can bear the power and the brightness of the god of thunder, as Hera knew well, of course, Semele was instantly obliterated by her vision of him. Okay, now the second myth is about the ancient figure Procrustes, who owns an inn along an empty stretch of road. So outside of his inn, on a sign, he advertises the guarantee that he has a bed available to exactly fit anyone of any size. Okay, now it turns out that he is telling the truth, but one that comes at an alarming shock to the various sized passers-by who spend the night there. What Procrustes does to ensure that everyone fits exactly in his bed is to either amputate their limbs if they're too tall, or stretch them out if they're too short. Okay, so why the heck am I mentioning these two mythical stories? Well, okay. To love, to genuinely encounter someone, is to open oneself up to and be opened up by someone else's otherness, right? And basically, otherness is that which is not me. The problem today, though, is that we exist primarily online, in a technologically sealed world, as these two-dimensional selves, largely incapable of seeing anything other than our own image. And as mentioned earlier, when we do claim to be seeking love, what we're often doing is circumscribing and flattening others. That is, we're fitting others to our established standard, much like Procrustes does when he amputates his lodgers to ensure that they fit the size of his bed. As a result of this, we live largely in a world where the other has vanished. Okay, so there might be another instructive way of coming at all of this. Okay, so according to Martin Buber, an Austrian philosopher of the early 20th century, we can adopt two basic attitudes towards the world, or two modes of relating to the world. He calls them the I-it way or the I-thou way. Now, the I-it way is to relate to entities in a world by seeing them as something like objects, and by trying to identify and analyze and classify and control and objectify and exploit them. The I-thou attitude, on the other hand, is a relation that you have with an entity that's one of openness and attentiveness and receptivity and passivity. More broadly, it's not to approach the world around us with an agenda in mind or a predetermined conception of things. Rather, it's to let what's around us be as it is, to allow it to fully manifest itself, and to allow it to move us as it is. What's more, to see or experience something as thou is to encounter a wholly unique, unpredictable, and possibly unknowable being. Now, such an encounter is, of course, inimical to someone like a scientist, right? Whose goal is to understand objects as ruled by universal laws which make their behavior predictable. But when you think about it, it doesn't sit well with the rest of us either. I mean, we are practical and acquiring people. That's to say, we have an incessant drive to get hold of and to pin down or objectify what we see or experience. Now, this of course manifests itself in a variety of ways. I mean, for example, we do it when we capture a butterfly and stick a pin through it in order to discern the species to which it belongs. But we also do it to each other all the time in our relationships. We objectify those we say we love when we label or judge them. Now, we resort to a plurality of rationalizations to justify this, right? But we really do it because we're often afraid of that very thing the thou encounter reveals. Namely, a unique and an unpredictable and an unknowable being. So, what we really want deep down is some kind of control. Not tyrannical control, of course, but control understood as a need for security and familiarity and predictability. Labeling and judging another person is a way to make them known to us. Now, knowing here takes the form of establishing. By giving the other a list of attributes, we fix them once and for all, thereby making them easier to understand and predict and, crucially important, relieving us from the impact of a genuine encounter. Okay, well, so I suggest that we see genuine love, or the Eros experience, as an example of this I-thou way of relating to the world, and not as the I-it way, which is more Pygmalion, where we circumscribe and tailor others to fit our expectations. So love then, Cupid love, as I started out with, is all about impact. To be struck by love is to encounter a thou. And what a genuine thou encounter unveils is something entirely unique. That is something, as mentioned, with an unprecedented and unparalleled and unpredictable character. It's not something that we discover or discern, but a presence that reveals itself to us. It's revelatory. Now, of course, the content or impression of the revelation can never be known beforehand, but it could turn out to be anything from a confrontation to an invitation. Now, this is, after all, what makes it so difficult for us to let loose of being in the comfort and the security and the order of the I-it world. For in so doing, we are opening ourselves up to either being humbled or beckoned from or pushed towards an unfamiliar horizon. In other words, to the unpredictable flashes or appearances of the thou. Okay, so this takes us back to the story of Zeus and Semele. So what's the connection there? Well, I'd say that genuine encounter with Zeus demands of Semele that she sees him as he is, not as she'd like him to be. Namely, tame and mundane and recognizable and predictable. In other words, genuine love demands that she sees him for what he really is, a particular being, an entity, a divine presence. And if powerlessness is the price to be paid for the revealing of the other, so be it. And in the case of Semele, it may be more than just powerlessness. It may be complete obliteration. Such, again, are the mortal wounds of love. Such are the extremes of the experience of Eros. Again, we live in a world increasingly marked by a need for control and security. And so a world organized for predictable experience and subsequent utility. Therefore, ours is a landscape populated largely by things, not entities. And things, as reductions of entities, well, they lack presence and force and character. Things, unlike entities, don't call out to us, and we're not moved by them. They appear indifferent to us. And our relationship with them is purely external and mechanical. Well, the threat of nothingness that looms over us who dwell exclusively in this world is the fall of Eros. Bye for now.